Okay, welcome to WASA Distance Education. This is MBF3C, Grade 11 College Prep Math. I'm Pete. I'm your teacher, and we're just wrapping things up for MBF3C for this semester. Today, we'll continue our review. We'll get through the rest of Unit 2 and probably a good chunk of Unit 3, and then we'll wrap things up tomorrow. Tomorrow is our last class in the course. Okay. So as we go through all this, maybe I might go a little faster or something for you if when I'm doing the review. This is just to kind of touch on what I sort of view as the big topics of the course. But if you do find it a little fast, remember you can find the classes on the WASA archive. You go to the WASA website and then find the class archive. The detailed instructions on how to do that are in the study guide for this course or any course actually. They'll at the back they'll have the how to access the archive. You can also go to YouTube PW space WASA. Okay, either way. So if you missed something or if you want to review something in more detail, you can actually find the class and go and review it. Okay. So yesterday we were looking at compound interest. We actually did the simple interest formula, compound interest, and we were in lesson 8 of unit 2. So this is the unit 2, and let's find lesson 8 here. Let's see if I can do this. And look at that. So what we were going to talk about a little bit was there's different things that they can ask you to find on the for this compound interest formula. Okay, now one of the more straightforward ones is if you have the formula, but they give you the A and you need to know the P, right? So here on page, where are we here? Page 16, in the middle, it explains how to do that. And you basically use your algebra skills to rearrange the compound interest formula to isolate the variable P. Okay, and you just do that with simple rearrangement. Now, a more difficult situation is when you're asked to find the interest rate. It's a good exercise, but you would really only use this if, let's say, you knew how much you wanted to borrow, you knew how much you could afford to you knew how much you wanted to borrow and for how long, and then you had to find out what interest rate that would work out to be. Okay, depending, right? Sometimes, for example, if you're buying a car, the dealer will give you a slightly better interest rate, but maybe you need a bigger down payment, or maybe they only have 4 or 5 year terms rather than the shorter term that you want, right? Your bank might give you a better rate. Maybe they want a small, who knows? So sometimes you shop around, and so this would, at least going through this, would give you an idea of what the maximum interest rate you're willing to accept would be, or something like that. Okay, so the way you do it is the way they show it here. They use the guess and check method. Now, if your Excel, Microsoft Excel skills are current, you could probably go in there, set up the formula, and then just plug in a range of I values until you find the one, right? You just type a couple of them and then extend the list the way Excel does, and eventually one of them will be the rate that you're looking for, the number that you're looking for. Okay, so that's another way of doing it. And of course, calculators, you can probably find an online calculator that would even do this for you. So here's the question. The principal, so 625 amounts to 1,028.37 in 4 years. So someone has a pretty good investment going there. Actually, it's a really good investment. The interest rate was compounded monthly. What is the annual interest rate? So there you go. And that's something that, by the way, one of the shows that sometimes comes on TV are schemers, shows about people who did financial fraud and stuff like that. And it's always something like that. They're giving someone a 10% return on their money every year, year after year after year. And nobody sits down to actually work out how much the interest that is, or or the fact that you can't actually get that kind of interest from a legitimate return, right? Because in the economy, if interest rates are 5%, someone who's giving you 10% rate of return, something's not right. It just doesn't happen that way. Okay. So anyway, so here's the top of page 17. So what we want to do, we know our A in this case. We know this is our target amount, so we have the A value. We have the P value. We even have the N, which is 48. What we're missing is the I value. So what we're just going to do, we're going to plug in some numbers until we find the proper I value. Okay. Now, the way they do it is they just come up with an I value. Okay. So the way I would kind of do it is I would say, all right, well, what's my interest rate? Maybe it's 5%, right? So then my I is going to be 0.05 over number of compounding periods, 12. Okay. And so then I would just plug this into the formula, which is the same thing, but the difference is that I would then change the interest rate and then calculate a new I every time. It's really up to you, but that's a way to do it. Okay. So what they did was they just guessed 0.005. So to kind of put that in perspective, so it says I will be divided by 12. I'm not really sure. Yeah, it's not divided, it's multiplied. I'm not really sure what that means. So 0.005 times 12 gives us an interest rate of, so the first guess was 6% interest. That was the guess, right? So they try it, they plug it into the formula, and if you have one of these graphing calculators, there's usually a button called entry on the second key, and what you can do is you can keep pulling that entry back up and just editing the one part, that the I value in your calculation. So that's another way of doing it. So the 0.0, that was, so it was too small. They ended up, what are they looking for? They 1.28. So what they did here to make it a little simpler, instead of having to go through the whole calculation each time, they worked it out so that they just isolated the part, the 1 plus I to the power 48, and they found that to match the A that they're looking for, it needs to be 1.6. So that's what they're really looking for, right? So they found a 1.28, that was too low. They guessed again with 0.010, which again, that looks like an interest rate, but it's, remember, we have to multiply it by 12. So 0.010 times 12 equals 12%. Huh? Yeah, so that's 12. So they guessed 12%. You see, they're kind of bracketing interest rate. I'd prefer to think about it in percentage of interest, because that way, when you're guessing, you're going to guess a standard interest rate. You're not going to guess some really weird interest rate, though I think that's what they ended up with here. Normally you'd guess like 8%, 7%, 7.5%, something like that. So anyway, they keep going. So this is called guess and check. And it's actually a very powerful method. And believe it or not, this actually, later on, probably when you get to college, you'll learn some techniques to, some refined way of actually doing this. And it actually is used quite a bit, but it's a little less guess and check. The initial value is a guess, and then everything else is based on what you came up with. So yeah, anyway, right now we're just guessing kind of sort of that way. We're directed, our next guess is directed at what we got for the last guess. So finally they got something pretty close, and that's really what you're supposed to do. 5 guesses is pretty good, and that's a good place to stop. You're down to a couple of decimal places. Okay, so they worked it out, and they ended up with 12% interest, very, very high. But we knew it had to be a really high rate of interest, because after 4 years, they've not quite doubled their money, but they've come pretty close. And for a normal interest rate, that's really, yeah, that's that's hard to do. Okay, and that's something Studying interest rates and how, the value of the interest affects the amount that we get does help us understand what's a good deal versus what's too good to be true. Right now, I think interest rates, I think I was just checking my accounts. I think they give me about 5.5% or something if I need to borrow something on my line of credit. That's a pretty good interest rate. But that's about what it is. So if I wanted to borrow money, it's about probably be a little more, maybe 6%, 7%, depending. And if I wanted to invest money, I'm probably looking at a little less than 5%. So, someone's offering you 10, 12%. I'm not quite right. Okay. So, um, so the trick then behind answering questions like this is to just really identify, go through the 4 steps in the 4-step problem solving model, identify what the question is asking you to do, which is step 1, and then step 2 is to figure out what formulas you're going to use, what numbers you need to do it. Okay, that would be step 2. Step 3 is usually for this type of math that we're doing is usually the easy step. That's where you've got all your numbers, you got your formulas written out, you have it all queued up, ready to go, and then pretty much, as long as you press the right buttons on your calculator, not so easy, you're going to get the answer, right? So step 3, and then step 4 is, again, you have to look back and ask yourself, does this make sense, right? Does I got an interest rate of 0.5%. Maybe that's a little low. I got an interest rate of 120%. That might be a little wrong too. So that's what you're looking for. So what principal? So you're looking for a P invested today at 4.28%, compounded semi-annually. That's 2 per year. Okay. This is all about understanding the question. Will amount to 3,509 years. Now, let's say you're on the exam and you have absolutely no idea how to solve that problem. As long as you can identify the principal and the amount, okay, you're already part of the way to solving the problem. Okay, so what I suggest is don't leave a question blank. Write down everything you can think of that would help you solve the problem. So you're going to get marks for that. Okay, I can't give you 0 if you write some stuff down that would have helped you solve the problem. Okay, so keep that in mind. There is a temptation to say, well, I have an idea, but I really don't think I can solve it. I'll just skip it. But you want to get as many marks as possible on that final exam. So just write something down. You know what the P is here. You know what the you could probably work out the I, because it's going to be 0.0428 divided by 2 compounds per year, right? You can probably work out the N. Okay, so your N is going to be 9 years times 2 per year, gives me 18. So you see, even if you weren't real sure how to proceed after this part, you've got some information that could help you, and you've demonstrated that you know something about the topic. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, so for question 2, now these ones get pretty tricky, but just work through it. So she won, Haley, she or he, doesn't matter. Well, yeah, all right, let's say she won $25,000 in a lottery. She will spend some of her winnings now and save the rest. The money Haley saves must amount to $45,000 in 25 years. Haley can invest the money at 6.35% compounded monthly. About how much could she spend now? Okay, so what we're looking at then is we want to know, we need the amount has got to be 45,000, doesn't it? Right? Yeah. And the principal, if we knew the principal, then what we can do is work out how much she can spend, because how much she can spend is equal to the 25,000 minus the principal that she's going to use to invest to come up with $45,000. So you see, this is where we are kind of working on part 2 and part 1, or step 2 and step 1 of the 4-step problem solving model. We need to understand what we're going for, because we will then come up with a number at the end, P, okay? But that is not the answer. that's one component that we're going to plug into this equation down below here that'll get us the answer, how much you can spend. And that's where understanding what they're asking you and then making a plan will kind of serve you well. Okay, because I've seen that, and it happens all the time when I'm marking, that a student will do a great job of solving part of the problem and then just kind of stop because they think that they found an answer, but in fact they didn't quite fulfill what the question asked for, right? So having a plan will help you keep track, because we get lost when we're can't see the forest for the trees. We're solving a math problem. We're so happy that we found the p-value that we forget that they don't want the p-value. They want the amount that you can spend. Okay, so now that you know all of this is pretty much a standard question. We just have to solve for p. So we'll just rearrange the standard compound interest formula with p as the unknown. We'll solve that because we have all the other information we need, and then once we get that number, we just subtract the p-value from 25,000. Okay, so that's how you do something like that. Okay, now the way to figure out where you need to study, take a look at these key questions, take a look at the feedback before you write the exam, and go through it, and look over the ones you did well on, because that's great, right? But make sure you also look at the ones where you had problems, especially ones where you didn't know how to do it. Usually I will write some some hints for you. Sometimes I'll actually show you a fair bit of it just to kind of get you going. So take a look through my notes, and of course, if you don't understand something, or if you don't understand my notes, you can't read my handwriting, feel free to contact me. Okay. Now, as far as when you have to write the exam, if you're in the radio course, just if you plan to write the exam in the next couple of weeks, then you're fine. If you've been making some progress. Beyond that, though, beyond the end of semester 2A, please just contact me, and or I'll end up tracking you down, and we'll figure out when you're going to write the exam. Okay, there's a bit of a rush because we want to get it done by the end of the this next semester, which is another 9 weeks after this week. But we gotta know that you're making some progress and you're not stuck somewhere. Okay, well that was the investments kind of side of it. Now on the loan side, we take the similar looking formulas, but we just rearrange them a little bit. Now be careful here, these are different, and you will get these equations on your final exam as part of the reference stuff. Okay, and that's just because they do look similar and it'd be easy to get mixed up. Okay, so there's two ways that we can talk about loans. There's the present value, okay, and that would be how much you're borrowing basically for a loan, right? Or the annuity formula, which is basically if I want to get a certain payment out every month, every week, every 6 months, how much money do I have to invest now at a certain interest rate? Now, that second one, the R, a lot of people, that's their retirement, the way you retire, right? Is you're saving a whole whack of money. Well, it doesn't start as a whole whack of money. It starts with $20 a week, $10 a week, and then it just builds up over the years. So what happens is when you go to retire, you stop working, so you're not getting your regular paycheck. So your taxes are a lot lower if you're, but you're not getting your regular paycheck. So you have to replace that income. But because you're not working, maybe you don't need to replace your car as often. You don't need to buy suits and ties to go to work. Well, whatever. There's costs in going to work, right? Maybe you're going to stop and have a McDonald's breakfast every morning on your way to work. So there's a cost there. And if you're not working, you don't have to have that breakfast every day. You could. So you're going to have maybe a little less money coming in. But what you'll do is you take your retirement savings, which is in some sort of, RRSP or a TFSA, which is the new thing, and you'll go and you'll buy some kind of annuity. It's called an annuity. It's an investment, and you give your money over to a financial advisor. Preferably some big bank and not just some guy you meet. And no, seriously, this is, if you watch the show about financial fraud, almost always it's, so and so introduced me to this guy, or my aunt recommended him, but the person was just not associated with any big bank or anything. So anyway, so you buy this investment and you say, all right, for 20 years I want to get $200 a week. That's what I want to do. Okay. How much do I need? And then they'll tell you how much you need. Maybe you need $50,000, maybe you need 100,000, maybe it's whatever. You give them the money, and then boom, you're going to get that money every week for 20 years, or as long as you agree. Okay. There's other ways of structuring it, and the course material doesn't talk about it. There's a few more modern ways where the return isn't guaranteed, but you'll make a little bit more money when the economy's doing better, because it's sort of tied to the stock market. So there are some more modern types of investments for retirement like that. Anyway, once the money starts coming in, then you can retire, right? You can do what you're going to do. Fish, go eat at McDonald's every day, whatever you like to do. Okay, so here's the things that you're going to need. The present value, so we'll talk about that. The regular payment, so that's how much money you're either going to pay into it if it's a loan, or withdraw if it's an investment or an annuity. Okay, and then the interest rate's calculated the same way. We do the I for the compound interest formula, and again, the N is the same as well. Okay, so let's take a look here. Now, we did the example, and they had a DVD player, which I thought is kind of, I don't even think you can buy a DVD player anymore. But anyway, so I changed it to an iPad, which I think that's probably what someone would get. Sort of, you go to the Northern and they got the iPads in there, and you say how much, and they tell you, and you go, do you have a payment plan? And they say, well, yes, we do actually. Okay, so, and here's how it works. So basically, in this case, the PV is going to be the cost of the iPad. Okay, now they may not even tell you how much it is, and that's how you can kind of use your math skills to work it out. What they're going to say is, well, no, we're going to sell you this iPad, no money down, 24 equal monthly payments of $18, which actually doesn't sound like very much, 24 months for an iPad, right? Interest charge 11.5%. That's kind of high, but that's about right for the Northern, I guess. I don't know. So here we go. So how much is that iPad worth, right? Maybe it's a good deal, maybe it's not. So what you do is you plug everything into this formula. You're looking for the PV, so that's it, the present value, which is how much this, the cash equivalent is what the other thing they say about it. But basically what they're saying is you're going to make these payments and commit to this 2 years of $18 a month. How much would you have had to basically invest, present value, to kind of balance out, or how much would they have had to give you in value to make it worthwhile? How much is the thing that you're buying going to cost you? That's basically how it comes down. So we go through all of this and we work through it. Be careful of these, because this is, well, I guess this looks, it's to the negative end, so do watch that. Okay, if you get a really strange number, then you're gonna know, right? You get a negative number, you get some weird answer. Double check for little things like that. So you work through all of this, and we end up at the iPad cost $384.28. It might be okay depending on, if it's a 16 gig, probably about right. If it's a 32 gig, you're getting a deal, right? If it's a Retina or one of the newer ones, that might be a really good deal, right? So, but that's how, and the calculation, even though we took a lot of lines, really, it's a pretty straightforward calculation, the sort of thing we've done a lot. Okay, so once you work through that and you know how much, basically how much value you're getting for your $18 a month for 2 years, you can then decide, is that worth it, right? Maybe some other store has a different right? Maybe some other store has 18 months, right? 10%, you know, you know, $17 a month, right? So then you can go and you can double check and see which one you're getting, which one's the better deal. Okay. So yeah, so we worked through that. Okay. Now here's another one that the other way we do it, probably the more typical way we do it. So good old Pam here wants to buy a car. I guess she goes by Pamela. She wants to buy a car for $35,000. Okay, a lot of money. She can finance the car through the dealership at 8.7 compounded monthly for 48 months. It's 4 years, not so bad. She does not have a down payment. Ouch. Okay. Pamela's in big trouble with me anyway. Maybe I'll go into the financial advising business after I retire because yeah, just basically tell her no, wait, walk, take the bus. Anyway, so she wants to borrow all $35,000. So we have to know what her regular monthly payment. Now maybe Pamela has a good reason that she needs a car, so I'm not going to be too rough on her. But you know, usually it's a bad sign that somebody doesn't have a down payment. But she might need it. Maybe she's going to school. Maybe this is her thing, right? She gotta go to school, needs the car. You know, gotta bring the kids to the daycare or the school in the morning. Go to school herself. Go to work in the evening. So maybe this is what she has to do, right? Anyway, the regular monthly payment then. We're going to use the formula that gives us the regular monthly payment. The PV, that's the 35,000. The value of the car and the interest rate. And now our I, what did they say? 0.7. So it's 0.087 divided. Be careful here. Still got to divide it by the compounds per year. So it's compounded monthly. So in this case, we're dividing by 12. And our N is going to be the 48. Well, it's just 48. That's basically, there's 4 years times 12. Okay, so we have everything we need. Just got to watch that. This formula gets really tricky. All of the 1 minus stuff is in the bottom. It's in the numerator. The exponent is negative. So do watch all of that. If you get a really strange answer, you know, try it again. Okay, so there you go. So we end up with $866 a month for 4 years. Okay, that's and that's it, right? So that's how much it's going to cost her. Now, if someone wants to know the cost of the loan, okay, because they basically gave her this car that has a cost, a retail price of $35,000, and they gave her an investment, okay? But remember, she's paying interest on this investment, 8.7% for 4 years. So she's paying interest on the essentially the loan on the car. So it doesn't just cost her $35,000. Okay, we can actually work out how much it costs her because we take the number of payments times the monthly payment amount or the regular payment amount, and we can actually work out that she paid or she will pay over the 4 years $41,568 for the car, right? So good $6,000 more than what. Right, yeah, good 6,060. Sorry, yeah, 6,568 more than what she would have um, paid if she'd have paid cash. Now, most people can't pay cash, right? But you can reduce the amount that you pay for it by doing a down payment. And you know, going through dealer financing, I guess that's if you go to the bank, you'll get a lower rate. But chances are the bank will say no to someone like Pamela because she hasn't demonstrated that she's even able to come up with, like if she had a couple of months of, like if she had 1,600 in the bank, right, or $1,700 in the bank as her down payment, then the bank would say, all right, well, she can afford to she can somehow save $866 a month. So probably, you know, we can give her the loan. But if she can't even save that amount, how's she going to come up with that every month for 4 years. Okay, well, maybe her circumstances have changed. So, uh, but that's the sort of questions the bank's going to ask. All right, here we go. So, well, these are the support questions. Let's just kind of skip down to the key questions because we haven't really talked about those. Whoop. Oh, okay. Well, we kind of skipped over. So now, the other way when we talked about this, the annuity formula, that is, um, if you want to find out how much you want your pension to worth. Let's say you say to yourself, you get your first job and you say, I want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 65. Okay. So you're going to say, now you have some of the numbers that you're going to need. Right? There's your $1 million. That's how much this thing's going to be worth. Okay. Your N is going to be the number of years. Let's say you get your first job and you're 20 years old. Okay. So how many years until you're 65? Well, 65 minus 20. So your N, well, your number of years is going to be, that's 45 years to save, right? Let's say that you're going to compound monthly, right? So it's going to be 12. That's your, whoops, that's going to be your N. So times 12. So that's going to be 540. That's how many regular payments you're going to make. Okay, and then your interest rate is going to be whatever the current rate is. You could say 5% or 0.05 over 12. And then you could go ahead and work out, have everything you need to work out in this case, the R, which is your regular monthly payment. How much would you have to put away every month at 5% interest rate over 45 years from the time you're 20 until you're 65 to have $1 million, right? You could actually work that out. Okay, probably a pretty big number, but whatever. Now let's say you don't need $1 million, right? I mean, there's only so much fishing equipment you can buy if you like to fish. So why would you need $1 million, right? Maybe 500,000, maybe 250,000, maybe 50,000, right? It really all depends on your circumstances. Okay. So, some people like to, maybe they're going to pay for their kids to go to school. Maybe they're going to pay for their grandkids to go to school, or maybe not. Maybe they're going to say, you know what, you're on your own. It just depends. All right, now, once you get your monthly pension, okay, now you can decide how much you're going to take out every month. Okay, and that's where you use these, either PV or R. R would be how much you can take out, okay, for a given pension amount, like a given retirement amount at a given interest rate. Remember, interest rates they change over time, but you can sort of guess. 5% is good. I know back in the 90s they used to use 10%, late 80s. That's probably not going to happen for a while, but you do have to understand that interest rates could go up really high. In this case, it benefits you, but they also go really, really low at times, and so it all evens out, but it evens out over a long period of time. So here's an example, and I think we went through these where, all right, so Nick began to contribute to his RRSP. Now that's a registered retirement savings plan, a very traditional way of saving money for retirement. There are new types of plans, the TFSA. For a lot of people, that's a better deal than RRSPs in the long run. Right? You don't get the tax advantage straight away. The nice thing about RRSP is that if you're paying taxes on your earnings, putting it in an RRSP, you don't pay tax on that money until you take it out, which is, a long time down the road. Okay, so that can save you money if you're in that position. The TFSA, you still pay tax on the money, but you don't pay tax on the money you take out. So it actually works out. This is where you need to talk to the people at your bank as early as possible. And even if you got, if you got $10 a week or, $5 a week to save, they'll still talk to you because they want to get you going with this sort of thing. All right. So in this case, at age 25, He wants to make yearly contributions that are $2,000. Now that's for depending on what you're doing. That's not too bad. It's a little less than um, is it a little less than 200 bucks a month? Yeah, it's a little less, about 175 a month, something like that. So maybe 75, 80 bucks from each paycheck. Okay, so and you earned an average of 7.5. Yeah, that seems a little high. Until his 65th birthday. Determine the amount in his RSP on his 65th birthday. Okay, so in this case now it's compounded annually, so we are correct in having the regular payment. Just every year he pops in 2,000 bucks. A lot of people, if they get a tax refund in April from overpaying their taxes, they use that for the RSP or for other things. Okay, it really depends. All right, Christmas bonuses. Some companies give out Christmas bonuses. All right, so we got 40 years to accrue money. So every year, for 40 years, he's going to put in 2,000 bucks, and there you go. At the end of it, he has 454,513.04. So that kind of gives you an idea of what it would look like. Okay, for saving that kind of money. That is, again, it's $2,000, but it's $2,000 per year. If you did it monthly, it would probably even be a little more, and you'd end up with a little more. Now, the interest rate might be a little unrealistic. I would stick closer to 5 or 6% to be more realistic. Okay. All right. So now here's the scenario where he kind of waited until age 40, and this happens to a lot of people. You're busy when you're young. You don't make a lot of money when you're young. You kind of, and if you have dependents, people who are counting on you, or maybe there's a layoff, or there's all sorts of things that happen when we're young. We don't have a lot of leeway. Getting laid off when you're in your 20s. Sometimes then you maybe have to borrow money, use your credit cards. You can't contribute to your RSP, and then it starts. It sort of piles up. So that does happen. So some people do start, they finally get a good job somewhere, steady income, lots of benefits, and so then they start, right, at age 40. It's not too late. It's never too late. So now, in this case, Nick is going to start contributing, and he knows he's got to catch up, so he's going to put 5,000 in. Okay? So, and then, given the same circumstances, how much is he going to make this time? Well, he's only got 15 years to start contributing, but he's contributing a little more, and you see at the end, he doesn't have quite as much. Okay? But still, I mean, that's something, right? And what that something is, the government gives you about 500 or 600 bucks a month as your old age security. So, all of that money, if he can get another 500-600 bucks from that money in a kind of a fund, then he's going to be comfortable, and he's going to be able to have his hobbies, and he's going to be able to travel a little bit. Okay, so and that's what it's all about. Okay, so now suppose Lucy retires on her 60th birthday. That is possible nowadays. I think some people are retiring a little later, but years ago people retired a little earlier. So 60. Now, let's say that she did really well, $750,000, and she's going to put away $650,000 of it. Okay, so basically what she's going to do is just pay herself $100,000. Now, she would pay tax on that, probably income tax, just as if she earned it, which she did, and it's just a tax deferred. So if she takes money out, she will tax, but because she's retired, that's her only income, so her tax rates aren't going to be all that different than what she was paying tax on before, okay, like her salary. So she wants to know, what is the question? It's going to go into an annuity, okay, that pays an average rate of 8%. Again, a little ambitious these days, compounded monthly for the next 25 years. So she's 60, and she says, 60, 70, 85. She figures she's going to travel the world, take cruises, go on a bicycle vacation to California, right? She's going to go visit Hawaii. She always wanted to do that, right? So this is what Lucy's going to do. She doesn't, So she wants to know what her monthly pension or income is going to be. Now remember, this is only from her savings. This doesn't count anything the government gives her, which they will, right? Because we all earn that through our old age security, or any company pension plan or anything like that. So we plug all the numbers in, right? The interest rate, monthly compounding, 25 years, 12 compoundings per month. The current value of the annuity that she's going to buy, 650,000, and we crank all that into our calculators, and there you go. She's going to get $5,016.81 a month. Okay, so for 25 years. Now, at the end of that 25 years, she's going to have a plan, but so you're going to have that $5,000 a month, and I think a lot of people could do quite well with that. It's um, by the time she is ready to retire, she probably paid off her house. Either she doesn't need a car, she has one, right? Maybe she gets her grandson to drive her around or something like that, right? I mean, that's what I would do anyway. um, so that's it. Now the only flaw in this scenario is that the interest rate is, again, it's a little ambitious. I use 6%. Okay, so this is what the sorts of questions that you'll see. Okay, so Luke wants to buy an iPod. Determine the equivalent cash price. So that's the PV. If Luke makes 18 monthly payments. So now you know how to do that. Wow, that's quite the interest rate, but some places will charge that. Okay, hot tub. Interesting. Okay, so this is her price. She makes a down payment on that hot tub. Okay, and she financed the rest at 10.4% compounded monthly. So what we want to know is what are her monthly payments going to be? Okay, so we calculate the payments for 36 months, for 48 months. Of course, they'll be lower for 48 months. Okay, but if she does it for 36 months, you can work out the interest. Now, for something like that, remember that the cost, right? The cost, or the A, right, is equal to the R, the payments, times the N, right? The 36 or the 48. Okay, so you're going to work out the cost for both of them. Subtract um, the total price, yeah, and then the difference is the difference in interest. Okay, so yeah, you can work that out. All right, so that should be it for these types of questions. So make sure you look those over. All right. Oops. Okay, a few of those. All right, what's the next one? So we also looked at buying a new vehicle, and it's kind of, it's related to financing and things like that, because we usually have to borrow money to buy a vehicle. Next to a house, the vehicle might be the single largest purchase that most of us make, right? Some people don't, some people rent or they have housing as part of their employment, right? So the vehicle might be the biggest thing that you buy. So it's important to understand all the ins and outs of it and to be able to do all the calculations. Okay. So here's the formula that they use, and again, it's the annuity formula. So you'll have that on the exam, and they're going to ask you maybe some questions about this. What are the advantages and disadvantages to buying a new vehicle, or advantages and disadvantages to buying a used vehicle? Read the questions carefully if they ask you for something like that. When they're asking for an opinion on the exam, just look at the point value and try and give that many different points. Okay, if it's a 3-point question, probably want to have at least 3 sentences, maybe 4, just as a spare, okay, to get the full marks. All right, so you'll be able to work through that and figure out how much a car costs. Okay, and they have all sorts of different costs and everything like that. Okay. Now, one of the things that helps you organize it is a deal review. Okay. Now, if you're asked to do a deal review on the exam, they're going to give you a um, template like this, so you don't have to worry about, remembering all of those um, items, right? You'll just go through it step by step. And actually, if you go through it step by step, it actually helps you kind of work your way through the calculations. Okay. So you should be able to know how to do a deal review. It's a useful thing to know how to do anyway in your life, and to be able to do it in a final exam. And usually a question like that's worth quite a few marks. All right. So yeah. So look at doing that. Okay. We did a few of those, so you can go find the video if you want to see how to do it. Now, the other thing that we might see is the resale value for a used vehicle. So, and that happens, right? You want to sell your truck on Craigslist, right? You want to sell it on Craigslist because you don't want to trade it in. The dealers, maybe they're not giving you good value for it. So this is the formula we use for the depreciation, the resale value, right? Or it's called depreciation. Okay. So it, of course, is going to come up with a number that's less than uh, what you paid for it, and it's usually based on the depreciation per year. 16% per year depreciation, 20%. That means the value drops. Now, we've all heard that, the old saying, the value of the car drops by 20% when you drive it off the lot. Well, that's what they're basically saying is a used vehicle depreciates. Okay. So, and so you can see how to use that. This is a matter of just coming up with the numbers, the R, the depreciation rate, and the N, which is the number of years. It's per year, usually. And you can plug that in. It's a short little calculation. Okay. All right. So that's pretty much it. We wrapped up this unit with vehicle costs and just something that being able to calculate, because if you buy your vehicle and you finance it and then you work things out so that the payment you're making is, pretty much everything, you might be into some difficulties because there's other things such as the fuel costs, maintenance costs, and maintenance is regular maintenance plus the type of maintenance where you are driving down the winter road and you hit a humongous crack at 100 and, well, nobody goes really fast in winter road, right? 120 kilometers an hour, and it breaks some stuff in the front. So those are the maintenance costs, right? Insurance, right? And licensing costs. Every few years, every year, every other year, the government sends you some money and says, by the way, here's a sticker for your truck. No, send us some money and we'll send you a sticker for your truck. Okay. So you have to do that. Now, if you move to Thunder Bay, I'm not sure if it's Thunder Bay, certainly Southern Ontario, you also have to have your vehicle emissions tested every couple of years. So you have to go to a Canadian Tire and, they hook it up to a machine, and I don't know, they charge you 40 or 50 bucks for that and give you a little sticker and a note that you can take to the licensing office that your vehicle's not polluting the air. For some reason, they don't make us do it up north here. So, but I'm not quite sure how far up north you get, whether Thunder Bay's covered or not. They have Canadian Tires in Thunder Bay. Probably do have to have it done there. Anyway, these are all costs that you have to keep track of, because imagine you have this nice truck and then the bill comes from the government for $75 for the renewal of your sticker, and then you don't have the $75. It's kind of a sad thing. So you can work out how much all these are going to cost. If you drive a lot, it's important to have a good idea of the fuel, how much the fuel is going to cost you. You could even have something like, if you're considering two trucks and you know that you're driving down down a winter road regularly, you can work out, if one of them has better fuel economy, it might actually be cheaper to buy that vehicle, even if it costs a little more, right? So you can actually do those calculations. Now, remember that when you're given a fuel consumption rating, okay, let's see. Yeah, so it's liters per 100 kilometers. the lower the better. And what you do is you just, let's see, how does it work out? You work out the number of liters of fuel you use. It's a two-step thing to find out what your fuel costs are, right? If you go a certain distance, you multiply that by your liters per 100 kilometers. That gives you a number in liters. That's the amount of fuel you use. Then you multiply that by the cost of the fuel, and that gives you a number in either dollars or cents, depending on what you started with, and that's your cost of fuel. Okay, so review those types of questions. If you had some problems with them, especially review those, because it's a two-step thing. There is a tendency, sometimes people will jump right to either just do the first part of it or somehow use the distance times the cost, which doesn't actually work. Okay, so we did a few of those. Yeah, there's a few examples here, so I think we should be in good shape. All right, and I think that's it for this this unit. So we'll just talk really quickly here about what we're going to do tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll just wrap up with Unit 3, which is the geometry. Okay. Okay, trigonometry, sorry. Now the trigonometry, there were some tricky bits to it, so I'm going to go through some of the more challenging parts of it, because I'm going to assume that you're kind of okay with SOHCAHTOA and right triangles and stuff like that. But we can talk about the sine ratio, the cosine ratio, things like that, trigonometry ratios. Okay. Okay. Yeah, sorry. So we'll just kind of, I think we're good with SOHCAHTOA. We'll just maybe talk about it briefly. But the main one I want to look at, and we'll do this tomorrow, we're going to look at the law of sines, law of cosines, and especially that, I think it's, is it lesson 14? The one that has all of the problems. We'll spend a bit more time on that because I want to show you some tips for not only solving those problems, but for getting the maximum number of marks when you're solving those problems. All right, well, let's just wrap it up there then. So tomorrow will be our last class, and so I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. All right, bye now.